An auxiliary bishop from the Archdiocese of Los Angeles says that he is offering a very specific challenge to pro-abortion Democratic lawmakers in an opinion piece in the New York Post today. Bishop Robert Barron writes in part, quote, "If you're truly interested in dialoguing with the church on this crucial matter, show a little profile in courage and support Born Alive legislation." And joining us now is Ramesh Ponnuru, senior editor at the National Review. Ramesh, thank you so much for joining us again. Great to see you. We have a lot to get to today, including some big Supreme Court decisions. But I want to start first off with that back and forth between church leaders and pro-abortion Democrat lawmakers. I'd like to get your thoughts on Bishop Barron's opinion piece that we just mentioned.
Thank you. Well, I think Bishop Barron has squarely raised the issue that ought to be raised, which is, are there any protections for nascent human life that people who say they are pro-choice are willing to support? And if we can find that area of agreement, then we can start there and we can go on and keep arguing about the other ones. But as he suggests, that kind of agreement is going to be very hard to find because the Democrats have unfortunately been almost in lockstep against things like the Born Alive Survivors of Abortion Protection Act.
Yeah. Another thing I want to talk about, as we reported earlier, the Supreme Court issued several rulings today, including one that upholds a ban on ballot harvesting in Arizona. For those who may not be familiar, can you explain what ballot harvesting is and also the significance of this case? And do you think this ruling will have an impact on other election integrity cases in other states?
Well, it goes beyond really one particular kind of voting practice, whether it is collecting ballots and turning them in, but it's really almost anything that a state wants to do in terms of its election procedures. The court is creating more leeway, saying that the Voting Rights Act that Congress passed gives them more leeway than courts have previously suggested. So, for example, the law says that you have to give equal opportunity to all groups to vote. That is, I think, at this point, a pretty uncontroversial view. But what does that actually mean? And one of the things the court is now saying is that if you have a small statistical difference between the way that one race votes and the way another race votes in terms of whether it uses absentee ballots, whether it uses early ballots, that kind of thing, changes that have an effect that way will not necessarily be considered to be discriminatory based on those small effects.
Yeah, I want to stick here with the Supreme Court right now. You know, there's been a lot of talk among some for Justice Stephen Breyer to step down. I know you know about that. What do you think about that? And how do you see this playing out ultimately?
Well, I think that a lot of partisan Democrats saw what happened when Justice Ginsburg did not heed the calls to retire in 2013 when the Democrats had the Senate and the presidency. And that's why they want Breyer to retire now, because they're afraid that the Senate will go Republican in the 2022 elections, or that the Democrats will lose the 2024 presidential election. The question is whether Breyer wants to be seen to be responding to that kind of partisan pressure. He has suggested before that it's important to the reputation of the court that the justices not be seen in those starkly partisan terms. He has just recently said that, and I think if he were to retire now, it would tend to confirm the very charge that he is trying to refute.
And Ramesh, we probably have about a minute left or so. Before I let you go, wondering what you are keeping your eye on right now.
Well, of course, the Breyer decision, which could happen in the next few days if he decides that he is going to step down, that's something that would become a huge political issue in the months to come. Of course, I'm also keeping an eye on the question that the bishops are currently considering about what to do about politicians who claim to be Catholic but are not in unity with the church on the sanctity of human life. Very important question.
Absolutely it is. And we thank you so much for your time and your analysis. Always great to see you, Ramesh.
You're welcome.